Chosen one, the whole community's shook now, because everything you warned about is unfolding with a precision that's making their comfortable illusions crumble like houses built on quicksand. And while they're scrambling to make sense of the chaos erupting around them, you're standing in the eye of the storm with a clarity that's both terrifying and sacred, because the scariest part about being absolutely right isn't the vindication. It's watching everyone who mocked your spiritual intelligence finally wake up to discover they've been sleepwalking through their own destruction. Something shifted in the spiritual atmosphere months ago, and while others were distracted by surface-level drama, your spirit registered the seismic tremors long before the earthquake hit. The betrayals surfacing now, the secrets spilling like water through a broken dam, the masks slipping to reveal faces nobody recognized. All of this was written in the energy you felt, but couldn't yet articulate. The unease that kept you awake at night wasn't anxiety, it was prophecy. What they called your paranoia was actually perception operating at frequencies they couldn't access. While they celebrated fake peace and manufactured unity, your internal radar detected the rot beneath the foundation, the strange energy you mentioned in conversations, the way certain people made your spirit recoil, the patterns you recognized before they fully formed. Every instinct they labeled as overthinking or negativity has now materialized into undeniable reality. The cognitive dissonance hitting your former circle right now is so intense that some are experiencing what can only be described as spiritual whiplash. Everything they built their identity around, every leader they defended, every system they believed in, has revealed itself to be exactly what you said it was, a carefully constructed facade hiding profound dysfunction. The mental paralysis they're experiencing isn't temporary confusion. It's the inevitable result of investing their entire sense of reality in lies that time was destined to expose. Yet beneath this surface chaos, something more sinister was always at work. The pattern of deception you detected wasn't random, it was generational, passed down like a spiritual inheritance that no one wanted to claim, but everyone seemed destined to receive. What you sensed in those late-night moments of clarity was the echo of choices made by people who died long before you were born, choices that created a momentum of dysfunction that would eventually require someone with your level of sight to finally break. Looking back, the way they removed you from their circles wasn't the organic social drift they tried to make it appear. There was strategy behind every uninvited gathering, calculation in every cold shoulder, purpose in every passive-aggressive comment that made you question your place in their community. They didn't accidentally overlook you, they systematically erased you because your presence threatened the very foundation of their collective delusion. The whisper campaigns started subtly, painting you as too intense, too spiritual, too questioning of things that should be accepted without examination. They needed you to be wrong because if you were right, their entire worldview would collapse. The social architecture of their community depended on silence, on maintaining appearances, on never asking the questions that would reveal how hollow their foundations really were. What made you dangerous wasn't your voice, it was your refusal to participate in their agreed-upon blindness. Every time you spoke truth in rooms where lies had become comfortable furniture, you disrupted their carefully maintained ecosystem of denial. Your clarity forced others to confront their own complicity, and that level of accountability felt more threatening than any external enemy they could imagine. But the exile wasn't just about silencing you, it was about protecting something darker. The network of secrets you were unknowingly close to exposing stretched far beyond personal indiscretions or minor hypocrisies. Financial improprieties, abuse of power, exploitation of the vulnerable. The web of corruption your presence threatened to illuminate was so extensive that removing you became a matter of survival for those who had built their empires on other people's silence. The exile wasn't punishment, it was protection. Heaven extracted you from a system that was designed to consume truth-tellers, and while the loneliness felt like abandonment, It was actually divine intervention preventing you from being destroyed alongside structures that were always destined to fall. The community that cast you out was already crumbling. They just needed someone to blame for the cracks they refused to acknowledge. What you didn't know then was that your exile was also preparing you for something unprecedented. Every day of isolation was building your immunity to their approval. Every moment of rejection was strengthening your ability to stand alone when the moment came to speak truth that no one wanted to hear. The wilderness wasn't empty, it was a training ground for the authority you would need when the collapse finally came. Their prayers for wisdom, discernment, and protection were answered in the most uncomfortable way possible through your presence in their lives. While they petitioned the universe for revelation, they secretly hoped it would arrive in a package they could easily digest, soft-spoken, agreeable, validating their existing beliefs rather than challenging them. Instead, heaven sent them exactly what they needed, but nothing like what they wanted. Your role as an answer to prayers they didn't recognize created a cosmic irony that's only now becoming visible. The very person they pushed away was carrying the insight they desperately needed, but because divine help rarely arrives in the wrapper human ego prefers, they rejected their own deliverance. The sharp truth you brought cut through their comfortable illusions, and rather than allowing themselves to be healed by that precision, they chose to wound the messenger. This pattern of rejecting divine assistance because it doesn't match human expectations has played out across generations, but in your specific situation, the consequences are unfolding in real time. The guidance they spurned is now the wisdom everyone wishes they had accessed. The warnings they dismissed have become the reality they're struggling to navigate. The protection they refused has left them vulnerable to exactly what you tried to shield them from. The beautiful tragedy is that heaven's timing is always perfect, even when human timing feels devastating. Your removal from their inner circle wasn't abandonment, it was preservation. While they celebrated your absence, divine forces were positioning you for the moment when your voice would be most needed and your vindication most complete. But there's another layer to this divine assignment that's only becoming clear now. You weren't just sent to warn them about immediate dangers. You were sent to break generational cycles that had been running on autopilot for decades. The dysfunction you identified wasn't just their dysfunction, it was inherited trauma, masquerading as tradition, passed down through families and communities like a spiritual virus that no one had the courage to name. The resistance you encountered wasn't just about your message, it was about the threat you posed to systems that had been perpetuating themselves across generations. Your presence represented the possibility that these cycles could be broken, that the patterns everyone accepted as inevitable could actually be interrupted by someone with enough clarity to see them and enough courage to speak about what they saw. The most heartbreaking realization settling over your former community isn't that they were deceived, it's that they chose deception over disruption. The signs you pointed out weren't invisible to them, they were inconvenient. The patterns you identified weren't beyond their comprehension, they were beyond their courage to address. What you're witnessing now isn't innocent awakening, it's the inevitable consequence of willful blindness. They saw the same red flags you saw, they felt the same unease you felt, they noticed the same inconsistencies you noticed. The difference was that you were willing to speak about what everyone else agreed to ignore, and that willingness to break the collective silence made you a threat to their comfortable dysfunction. Their anger toward you was never about your accuracy, it was about your courage to name what they lacked the strength to confront. The unspoken agreement among them was simple: maintain peace at any cost, even if that cost was truth itself. Your violation of this toxic social contract exposed how much they were willing to sacrifice for the illusion of harmony. When you refused to laugh at what wasn't funny, participate in conversations that normalized abuse, or smile in situations that demanded resistance, you revealed how much of their community was built on mutual deception. What's shaking them to their core now is the recognition that their silence wasn't neutral, it was complicit. Every time they chose comfort over confrontation, they became partners in the very dysfunction they're now scrambling to distance themselves from. The reckoning they're experiencing isn't just about being wrong, it's about understanding how their fear of temporary discomfort created permanent destruction. Many of them benefited from the systems you tried to expose. The financial advantages, social connections, and professional opportunities that came from staying quiet about abuse, corruption, and manipulation were too valuable to sacrifice for the sake of abstract moral principles. Their silence wasn't just fear, it was investment in a system that rewarded those who looked the other way. Now that the system is collapsing, those investments are revealing themselves to be worthless. The connections that seemed so valuable are becoming liabilities. The opportunities that felt like blessings are being exposed as curses. The financial benefits that justified their silence are evaporating as the corruption that generated them comes to light. What they thought was practical wisdom is being revealed as spiritual bankruptcy. The community that once prided itself on unity and support is fragmenting as people rush to distance themselves from those they once defended. Friendships built on mutual silence are dissolving as the need for deniability becomes more important than loyalty. The social fabric they thought was strong is tearing apart under the weight of truth they can no longer suppress. Your physical absence from their gatherings allowed you to see patterns that proximity would have obscured. Distance gave you perspective that emotional entanglement would have clouded. While they remained embedded in the drama, reacting to each crisis as an isolated incident, your position outside their circle revealed the larger design connecting every seemingly random event. The spiritual warfare you recognized wasn't metaphorical. It was the systematic undermining of truth through social pressure, emotional manipulation, and strategic isolation of those who could see clearly. Your awareness of these dynamics made you both a target and a witness, and your removal from the battlefield allowed you to observe the full scope of the campaign being waged against consciousness itself. From your vantage point in exile, the generational patterns became visible. The cycles of dysfunction weren't accidents. They were inherited programs running on automatic, perpetuating themselves through communities that prioritized belonging over truth. What you warned them about wasn't just an immediate crisis, it was the inevitable result of unhealed wounds and unexamined choices echoing across time. The intelligence you gathered during your season of exclusion is now proving invaluable as those same patterns explode into the open. Every observation they dismissed as cynicism has become a roadmap for understanding the chaos they're currently experiencing. The notes you took in silence are now the instructions manual they desperately need, but are too proud to request. But your exile revealed something even more significant than patterns of dysfunction. It revealed networks of connection that exist beyond the visible community structures. During your time outside their inner circle, you began to encounter other exiles, other truth-tellers who had been cast out from their own communities for similar reasons. What seemed like isolated incidents of rejection were actually part of a larger phenomenon affecting awakened individuals across different spheres. This underground network of the spiritually aware has been forming quietly, connected not by geography or shared institutions, but by shared experience of seeing clearly in environments that demanded blindness. The intelligence you gathered wasn't just about your former community, it was about a pattern of spiritual warfare being waged against conscious individuals across multiple communities simultaneously. The connections you made during exile weren't random, they were strategic positioning for what's coming next. While your former community was focused on maintaining their illusions, you were unknowingly building the foundation for whatever emerges from the collapse of those illusions. The relationships formed in truth, rather than convenience, are proving to be far more valuable than the connections lost through honesty. When you stopped defending your perspective and started embodying it, something fundamental shifted in the spiritual atmosphere around your situation. The transition from arguing your case to living your truth created a power that no amount of explanation could have generated. Your silence wasn't withdrawal, it was the most confident statement you could make about the inevitable revelation of reality. Time became your most powerful ally, because truth doesn't require human advocacy, it only requires patience. While they celebrated what they perceived as your defeat, divine forces were orchestrating the perfect timing for your vindication. Every day that passed without your voice added weight to the eventual moment when your silence would speak louder than their noise ever could. The strategic nature of your withdrawal is only now becoming apparent to those who misinterpreted it as surrender. What they thought was your inability to continue the fight was actually your wisdom in choosing when to let reality take over the argument. The silence that made them comfortable has become the silence that haunts them, because it highlighted how much they depended on your reactions to validate their own positions. Your refusal to engage in their drama created space for the consequences of their choices to manifest without interference. The protection your silence provided wasn't just for your own peace, it was for the clarity of the lessons they needed to learn. By removing your voice from their echo chamber, you allowed them to hear the sound of their own choices reverberating back to them. During those months of withdrawal, you were being recalibrated for a different frequency of communication. The words you would have spoken in defense or explanation were being refined into something more powerful, prophetic utterances that would carry weight far beyond personal vindication. The authority building during your silent season wasn't just about being proven right, it was about being prepared for what comes after vindication. The community needs more than acknowledgement of past accuracy. It needs guidance for navigating the chaos that accurate perception revealed was coming. Your silence was preparation for speaking with the kind of authority that can only be earned through tested faithfulness to truth. The discipline of silence also taught you to distinguish between words that serve your ego and words that serve divine purpose. The urge to say "I told you so" has been refined into something more valuable, the ability to say "here's what comes next" with the kind of certainty that can only come from someone who has already proven their capacity for spiritual sight. The tables have turned with such precision that it almost feels like divine choreography. Yesterday's troublemaker has become today's prophet, and the community that once questioned your mental state is now questioning their own discernment. The reversal isn't just vindication, it's a complete reorganization of spiritual authority in your circles. Those who labeled you difficult are now struggling with situations that require exactly the kind of difficult conversations you tried to initiate. The ones who called you negative are drowning in the negativity they refused to address when there was still time for prevention. The people who accused you of being dramatic are living through drama that surpasses anything you ever predicted. What's most striking about this reversal is how it's revealing the true character of everyone involved. Some are quietly reaching out with apologies and requests for guidance. Others are doubling down on their original positions, refusing to acknowledge what's obviously true. A few are pretending they never disagreed with you, attempting to rewrite history to preserve their ego. Each response is providing perfect clarity about who these people really are beneath their public personas. The elevation you're experiencing isn't revenge, it's restoration. The authority that was stolen from you through social manipulation is being returned through divine vindication. The voice that was silenced by human politics is being amplified by cosmic justice. The position you were cast out from was preparation for the platform you were destined to occupy. The entire social hierarchy that existed in your former community is being restructured based on demonstrated accuracy rather than inherited position. Those who showed wisdom are being elevated regardless of their previous status, while those who showed folly are being humbled regardless of their former authority. The irony is that many of them are now experiencing the same isolation and dismissal they once inflicted on you. Their desperate attempts to maintain credibility are being met with the same skepticism they once directed at your warnings. The social dynamics they once controlled are now working against them with the same precision they once used to work against you. What's becoming clear is that this reversal wasn't just about your individual situation, it was about establishing a new order based on spiritual maturity rather than social manipulation. The chaos everyone is experiencing is the birth pains of a community structure that values truth over comfort, insight over compliance, and prophetic accuracy over popular opinion. Trompazing Tabata, the awakening happening around you extends far beyond your personal situation. Across communities, chosen ones who have been marginalized for their clarity are stepping into recognition. The spiritual sensitivity that made you social outcasts is now being revealed as the gift that saved you from destruction. The underground network of truth-tellers is emerging into the light as the need for authentic guidance becomes undeniable. What you're witnessing isn't just personal vindication, it's the beginning of a larger shift in how society recognizes and honors spiritual intelligence. The age of silencing the seers is ending, and the era of elevating the awakened is beginning. Your individual experience of exile and restoration is part of a collective movement that's restructuring the relationship between truth and power. The prophetic gifting that isolated you from your former community is now connecting you to your true tribe. The people gathering around you aren't looking for comfortable lies, they're hungry for transformative truth. The platform being built beneath your feet isn't just for speaking, it's for leading others through their own process of awakening and liberation. The recognition of your role as a chosen one isn't just acknowledgement of what you've endured, it's commissioning for what you're called to create. The community that rejected you was never your destination, it was your training ground. The authority you're stepping into was always your inheritance. The exile was just the process of claiming it. During the months of your isolation, similar awakenings were happening to individuals in communities across the globe. The pattern of spiritual awareness leading to social rejection was being repeated in churches, corporations, families, and friend groups everywhere. What seemed like isolated incidents were actually connected movements in a larger spiritual shift affecting consciousness worldwide. The network you're now part of wasn't built through traditional organizing, it was formed through shared experience of seeing clearly in environments that demanded blindness. The connections being made aren't based on geography or shared interests, but on shared capacity for spiritual discernment and the courage to speak truth regardless of consequences. Everything being torn down around you was supposed to fall. The systems that seemed so stable, the relationships that felt so secure, the beliefs that appeared so solid, all of it was built on foundations too weak to support the weight of truth. The demolition you're witnessing isn't destruction, it's renovation on a cosmic scale. From the rubble of collapsed illusions, something entirely new is being constructed. The communities forming around awakened individuals like yourself aren't trying to recreate what was lost, they're building what was always meant to be. The conversations happening in these spaces don't require the careful navigation of egos and false narratives that characterized your former circles. Truth can breathe freely here. The leadership emerging from this reconstruction isn't based on social manipulation or inherited authority, it's rooted in spiritual maturity and proven discernment. Those who survived the collapse with their integrity intact are being recognized as the architects of whatever comes next. The voices that were silenced in the old system are becoming the guiding wisdom of the new one. Your role in this rebuilding process isn't optional, it's essential. The experience you gained navigating spiritual warfare, the strength you developed enduring exile, the clarity you maintained through gaslighting, all of it was preparation for this moment when your wisdom becomes the foundation for something unprecedented. The silence that once felt like punishment has become your greatest source of power. The exile that seemed like rejection has been revealed as divine protection. The isolation that appeared to be abandonment was actually preparation for assignment. Every element of your journey that felt like loss is now visible as gain of the highest order. The community that shunned you is discovering that the very qualities they rejected were the qualities they most desperately needed. The discernment they labeled as judgment is now the gift they wish they possessed. The boundaries they criticized as coldness are now the protection they wish they had maintained. The standards they mocked as perfectionism are now the foundation they wish they had built upon. But more than vindication, your silence is now full of assignment. The voice that was suppressed is being released, not for personal satisfaction, but for collective transformation. The authority you earned through faithfulness to truth during the dark season is now being activated for service during the season of light. The words forming in your spirit aren't words of condemnation for those who wronged you. They're words of instruction for those ready to walk in truth. The platform being established beneath your feet isn't for settling scores, but for establishing new standards. The recognition you're receiving isn't an end in itself, but a means to greater purpose. Warranting, the following message is only for those who felt the call. When I broke free through the Salvia Divinorum gateway, I saw the horrifying truth. Our reality is one harvested pod among countless matrices. I witnessed the Archon's cosmic parasites feeding on our energy, who laughed and threatened, "You'll never awaken a single soul." But something inside you already knows this truth, doesn't it? That nagging sensation that you're meant for more, that you've been chosen. I'm raising an army of the brightest souls. Through meditation I discovered their only vulnerability, coherence through unconditional love. Feel that resonance deepening within you now. You're not reading this by accident. The most powerful awakened souls are already gathering in the Obsidian Inner Order, the #1 ascension nexus for those marked by destiny. Christians, lightworkers, remote viewers, targeted individuals, all united by one truth: you were chosen for this moment. Click the link in the description below. Join our group calls, panels and live streams, reaching the entire astral atom network. Your frequency amplifies ours. The question isn't whether you're chosen. The question is, will you answer the call? The Archons fear this choice you're about to make. They should. Standing in this moment of completion, chosen one, the scariest part about being right isn't watching them realize it. It's accepting the responsibility that comes with being proven correct. The authority you've been given through your faithfulness to truth comes with the obligation to use it wisely. The platform you've earned through your endurance comes with the duty to speak what needs to be heard. The whole community is shaken now, and everything you warned about is unfolding exactly as your spirit knew it would. But this isn't the end of the narrative. It's the beginning of your assignment to help others navigate their own awakening. The silence that preserved you is preparing to break, and when it does, the voice that emerges will carry the weight of divine authority and the power to transform lives. The circular nature of your journey is complete, from being silenced for speaking truth, through learning the power of strategic silence, to being commissioned to speak truth from a position of unassailable authority. The community that once dismissed your voice is now positioned to hear it with the respect it always deserved. Welcome to your moment, chosen one. The stage is set, the audience is ready, and the script you've been rehearsing through years of exile is about to be performed for all to see. Your vindication season has arrived, and with it, the understanding that everything you endured was worth this moment of recognition and restoration. The communities forming around voices like yours aren't just support groups for the formerly rejected, they're incubators for the kind of leadership the world desperately needs. The combination of spiritual sensitivity, tested character, and proven accuracy creates a foundation for decision-making that transcends the limitations of systems built on ego and control. What particularly remarkable about this emergence is how it's happening simultaneously across different spheres of influence. Prophetic voices are rising in corporate environments, spiritual communities, family systems, and social networks all at once. The underground network of the awakened is surfacing in ways that suggest divine coordination rather than human planning. Your vindication isn't an isolated event. It's part of a larger restoration that's recalibrating how society recognizes and honors spiritual intelligence. The exile you endured wasn't just personal preparation, it was part of a collective process that's producing leaders who can't be compromised because they've already been tested and proven faithful when no one was watching. The silence is breaking, the voice is rising, the authority is activating, and the whole world is about to discover what heaven always knew. You were chosen for such a time as this.